3 weeks ago, I told you a dead wife and a song kicked off this whole series. This week, that song finally gets to mean something instead of just costing something. Shorn of his strength and bound in bonds of steel. That's where we start. Let's finish this trilogy. This is Morning Star, Book 3 of Pierce Brown's Red Rising trilogy. It picks up in the worst place this series has put Darrow yet. Captured, exposed, and paying for it. And spends its first stretch making you sit in that before it lets you anywhere near hope. Where Golden Sun ended on the biggest gut punch of the series so far, Morning Star has to answer a real structural question. How do you follow a betrayal that complete? Brown's answer is to widen the lens. This stops being a story about one infiltrator inside Gold Society and becomes a story about an actual rebellion. Every color in the caste system, not just reds. Finding reasons to fight the system that's been grinding all of them down in different ways. If you've read the first two along with me, you know the emotional toll this trilogy's already taken. This book asks for more, and I'll say this now so the verdict section isn't a surprise. It earns every bit of what it asks for. The opening stretch of this book is rough on purpose, and I want to talk about why that's the right call instead of a slog. After 2 books of Darrow being relentlessly competent, the guy who outthinks and outfights everyone, Morning Star opens by stripping all of that away. He's not winning anything at the start of this book. He's just surviving. And Brown holds that note longer than is comfortable because the whole trilogy has been building toward a question. Who is Darrow when winning isn't an option? The first 2 books never really let us find out. This one forces it. What I think Morning Star gets right that a lot of trilogy closers don't is scale without losing the personal stakes. The war here is genuinely massive. More factions, more fronts, higher stakes than anything in books 1 or 2. But Brown keeps cutting back to the small, specific costs underneath the big war room moments. It's not humanity wins as an abstraction. It's specific people Darrow has spent 2 books making us care about, paying specific prices. That's the harder version of a finale to write. And it's why this lands instead of just being bigger explosions. The found family through line pays off hardest here. Sevro's been the emotional ballast of this entire series, loyal in a way that never once asked Darrow to be anything other than what he actually is. And this book is where that loyalty gets tested against the worst version of events, not the easy version. Meanwhile, the alliance building across colors, obsidians, reds, golds, who've actually changed their minds instead of just losing a war, is where the trilogy's actual thesis shows up most clearly. This was never really a story about reds beating golds. It's about whether a system built entirely on a lie about human worth can be replaced with something that isn't, and whether the people who benefited from that lie can actually choose differently when it counts. Mustang's arc closes out exactly the way her introduction in Book 1 promised it would, even if it took until this book for the trilogy to let her be right without an asterisk on it. I called it last week, the slower, more principled path she kept pushing for in Golden Sun. And this book is where that argument finally gets to win some real ground instead of just being the noble losing position. And the ending. I'm not going to walk through it beat by beat. You read it, or you will. But I'll say this. It's a rare trilogy, Closer, that earns bittersweet instead of either everyone's fine or everything's ash. The cost is real. The hope is also real. Brown doesn't let either one cancel the other out, and that balance is the hardest thing to land in a series finale. Looking back across all 3 books now that I've finished the set, the thing that holds the trilogy together isn't the plot. It's that Brown never once lets Darrow be purely right. Book 1, you root for him without reservation because he's a victim fighting back. By book 3, you're rooting for him while also watching everything that fighting back has cost him and the people around him. And the book wants you to hold both of those at once. That's a much harder thing to sustain across 3 books than just escalating the stakes. And it's the reason this trilogy sticks with you instead of just entertaining you for a week and fading. I also think this is a genuinely useful book about leadership, stripped of the sci-fi trappings for a second. Darrow spends 3 books learning that being the most capable person in the room and being the right person to lead the room are 2 different skills, and that the gap between them is exactly where tyrants get made, including, potentially, well-intentioned ones. Morning Star is the book where he finally has to act on that lesson instead of just learning it intellectually, and watching him actually choose differently than the system that made him would have chosen is, I think, the real climax of the trilogy, bigger than any single battle in it. The moment I keep coming back to is Roque. 2 books ago, he was Darrow's friend, the poet, the moral counterweight to Sevro's loyalty. Last week, that friendship became the betrayal that ended Golden Sun. This week, it ends the only way it could. Darrow and Roque on opposite sides of the same war, and one of them not walking away from it. Dead or alive, just make sure he's recognizable. That's the bookend. 3 books to close one friendship, and it never once feels like it was anything less than real on both sides, which is exactly what makes it hurt. Rating: Morning Star gets a king, and so does the trilogy as a whole. Individually strong books that get meaningfully better read back to back, which isn't always true of trilogies. Who's this for? If you read the first 2 along with me, you don't need my permission to finish. You're already in. If you're coming to this fresh, read all 3 before you decide anything, because this trilogy is genuinely built to be judged as one story, not 3. Comp titles for the trilogy as a whole: The Hunger Games for where it starts, A Song of Ice and Fire for where the politics and loyalty go, and honestly, its own thing by the time it ends. I'm not sure I have a clean comp for Morning Star specifically, which is its own kind of compliment. Copies linked below if you want to read along. Amazon Associate, I earn from qualifying purchases. And if you want the next 4 books in the wider saga, I'll be circling back to those later this year. Trilogy complete. 3 down, 49 to go. If you read this with me, tell me where this ranks against everything else we've covered so far. And if you're new here, the first 2 episodes are right behind me. Next week's a clean break. New book, new genre, same challenge. Subscribe if you're still doing this with me. See you in the next book.